Okay, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Conway. I am the Rexel Automation Manager for Western New York. I want to thank you all for joining us for our series where we do a tech talk almost every Tuesday, once a month at least. This will be less than 1 hour. It's again meant to be a quick overview and really just talk to you specifically about subject matters where if you have more interest, you can have us come out and talk to you about it a little bit more. Today, we're fortunate to have Bob Berry, who'll be talking about software and really how you can use it to make it soft or make you smart, sorry. Specifically Rockwell. Bob is one of our more senior automation specialists. He's seen and done it all. He's been an integrator. He's worked for integrators. He's done machine building, and he's been working for us the last 15 years. So we know how software is changing quickly. Rockwell is acquiring different companies and their software. There's been a lot of enhancements, additions. So again, if you see something here today that is of interest, please contact Bob or myself and we'll be in contact with you. We really do appreciate you joining us today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
So taking a look at the agenda, as John said, this is really just an introduction, how to begin logging data and, to build an information system. So we'll talk about, the first topic there, why and how I can log data, what database to use, right? Do you use SQL, do you use Historian for an application? And we'll start to look at some of the Rockwell software products, the Rockwell Connected Enterprise, software that allows us to log data, visualize, and contextualize the data. And I'll review a couple of sample architectures and do some demos. So why do you want to log data, right? Many reasons you want to log data. But really the bottom line is typically you're trying to make your machine or your process smarter, right? More efficient. Productivity initiatives such as OEE, can help improve your manufacturing process. Sometimes you might have regulatory requirements, to kind of track whether it be pollutants or other kind of chemicals that are released. So maybe you want to log alarms, get an alarm history to see what's going on, that type of thing. So a lot of reasons, but really it's all about making your machine and process more efficient, reduce downtime. So how can I log data? I'll be looking at 4 specific Rockwell automation software products that enable us to collect data and visualize. So we'll be talking about FactoryTalk View Site Edition. That's our SCADA package. Another software package we can use is FactoryTalk Transaction Manager. Allows us to log data. There's a module chassis-based equivalent softing. If you heard of Encompass Partner Softing, they offer something very similar, without a PC. And the next software product there is Historian SC. And then finally, we have somewhat of an enhanced product with FactoryTalk Metrics. FactoryTalk Metrics has been around, but now we have what we call a Scalable OEE solution that I'll be talking about. So what database schema to use, right? SQL database versus Historian database. That's really all about what you're trying to do with the data. You have to think about that up front in your project. Typically for event data, SQL would be a better database to use. I call SQL a wide database it could have many columns that you can configure in your table. So you can correlate data from many topics, do queries, that type of thing. That's the real advantage of using SQL. And there's a couple of the cons there. You need to know the SQL query language to start and sort and filter the data. A lot of us are control engineers, maybe on this call. You're not familiar with SQL, so a little bit of training has to go on for controls guys like us to maybe utilize SQL in a better manner. Maybe you have some IT people with experience on it, but that'd be the one con I would say. a lot of different reporting services, or tools you can use with SQL, including SQL reporting services. Then you'll see we have tools such as Vantage Point and another Encompass partner product called XR Reporter. So one of the things you got to consider with SQL, though, it can slow down over time as the database grows. So don't have hard set numbers on that, any kind of benchmarks to say, your database gets X amount. It's going to slow down, but it's something to consider. And then when you're looking at, it's what we call process data, right? It's what we call time series data. You're time stamping a process tag value, and it's a very optimized database and efficient. You're not logging quite as much. So being efficient, it's much quicker, snappier, and you can fit, on a hard drive today with process or with Historian, you can fit 10, 20 years worth of data with the Historian SE. Very efficient. Just taking a look at a SQL database example. This is what I'm talking about when I say a SQL table is wide. So you can associate a lot of data. Here it's just a simple example showing some, employee data, IDs and names and dates, that kind of thing. That's very similar to, FactoryTalk. You'll see FactoryTalk alarm events logging data, or transaction manager logging data. So it's why you query this data, say you want to know, everybody that was hired before, a certain date. So a lot of things you can do with SQL as you build queries. Here's an example of a Historian SE database. You can see it's a very narrow database. You got a tag name, a date timestamp, and a tag value. So I tend to lean towards SQL for doing for batch data and that kind of thing, but Historian can handle it. But it requires some more complex queries, to be performed to sort the data out. You have to, look at when the batch started, when the batch ended, and then start to filter the data in between that time. So it takes a little bit, more complex queries, to handle batch data in Historian, but it can be done. So looking at these, how can well-connected enterprise help with these 4 products we're talking about today? So looking at FactoryTalk View Site Edition, that's what we call this, our SCADA software, right? We have 2 different ways to log data. We can historically log alarm events to SQL, and we can also set up a data log to SQL. You want to trend process data. And with Historian Site Edition, as I mentioned, it's a time series database. Very simple to use Historian. We have tools to configure the tags, to put them on scan. Then we have multiple reporting tools from Excel Data Link, FactoryTalk Vantage Point. You see PTC coming into play now with some more advanced reporting tools. And talking about Transaction Manager. So this is a software package where you're just configuring transactions to transfer data back and forth from a controller to SQL or other ODBC database. An example could be recipe data, for example. It could be process data as well. It's bidirectional, as you'll see. And the last software there is FactoryTalk Metrics. So you heard of OEE, that acronym before, Operational Equipment Effectiveness. It logs performance data to SQL. Fairly easy to build, up a model based on work cells. You configure work cells per your manufacturing area. But so one of the nice things about metrics, up to 60 pre-configured reports. So I'm using SQL reporting services. And it's also easy to develop some ad hoc reports. So fairly easy tool to use. Might be a little intimidated at first, but really it's not a bad software package to use. Any of these really are fairly simple to use. So let's look at FactoryTalk view site edition a little bit more. So say I want to log data to SQL or any ODBC database, right? Whether it be data or FactoryTalk alarm and events. So say you want to create a data log in View SC, right? So that picture on the left there is my Project Explorer, and down the tree there you see data log, and you right click on there, and say you want to create a new data log, and you'll see that the dialog box on the right pop up, and that's where you set up your DSN in Windows. First you have to do that. That's a key to get that set up. So and then you'll see it creates three tables: a tag table, a float table, and a string. So it's fairly easy to get process data into VUSC to start logging. Logging process data for trending really is what you're doing. So really what's being logged is the tag name, the float, the string is time stamped. Some of the specifications, right? A single data log can have up to 10,000 tags in VUSC, up to 100 data log models. So you can see how it can grow pretty large. Quite a big capability in VUSC to log data. And you can log data based on a periodic, time, a change, or an event, or on demand, and up to hundredths of a second. So you're not going to get down to the milliseconds. You typically don't have to in control system, but we can log data from hundredths of a second up to days in VUSC. So looking at the FactoryTalk alarm and events. So if you want a historical log of your alarm, so you can go back in time, maybe see what happened, that's when you would start to log, your alarm and events in SQL. So there's kind of two methods to set up FactoryTalk alarm and events. We have controller alarming and tag alarming. So this picture down below here is I'm showing adding a device alarm server here. It's highlighted in blue. So then your configuration dialog box would pop up, and you see that checkbox here, where you're enabling alarm and event support. And then finally you would click this enable history and, connect it into your database. Something like this where you add a database connection. So it's kind of key when you're connecting into SQL, right? You got to know your SQL administrator account login to make sure that, VUSC can make that connection in the SQL. So what are the reporting options with View Site Edition for process data? Right, we have trends. You'll see we got a nice new Trend Pro object. We have FactoryTalk Vantage Point that's been around 10 plus years now. So it's really a site-wide reporting package, whether it be SQL data. You see we have add-ins for FactoryTalk software products like FactoryTalk A&E database. There's an add-in for metrics database. So kind of a all-encompassing reporting package, and it's site-wide. Has a portal built into it, so you can, come into the portal, view reports just from a web browser, right? Nothing to install on the client per se. And if you need something, maybe a lighter reporting software package, that's where XR Reporter can come in. You can get somewhat sophisticated with XR Reporter. They do have a team version, so you can do some of those things like, use a web browser to come in to review reports. And we also have some advanced reporting options. If you know SQL reporting services, that can always be used with any, SQL database. You just got to have that experience with. Maybe some of us don't have that. And then you probably heard of PTC. Rockwell invested, heavily in PTC 2-3 years ago. So you see some advanced reporting options with PTC now. So that's the views, little overview on Site Edition. A couple more screens here. This is the Trend Pro. So in version 12, we made some nice enhancements. Trend Pro has been out, 2 or 3 years. But you can see this picture on the right here, whether you very easily you can log historian SE data in View SE. So you can add it into your, attach it to the trend very easily, whether you want to either trend a View SE data log, etc. So this new Trend Pro tool really adds a nice trending capability in the View SE. Also with View SE version 12, we also added a grid that allows SQL data to be displayed easily. So there's a case where, if you have a simple application, you need to display some data on your HMI. Now we can bring that SQL data right into the View SE without having to have some reporting package. And then finally, I mentioned Excel Reporter. So this is their link to their site. But they also have mobile capabilities. You see that you can get mobile reports. So that's quite a bit of capability. They got live workshops if you want to get some more experience on it. Let us know if you want to get more experience with Excel Reporter. We help you out determine should I use Excel Reporter, should I use FactoryTalk Vantage Point, or maybe an advanced reporting package like PTC. Now I want to talk about View Historian Site Edition. That's what we call the SE Site Edition. What is it and what can it do? So as I mentioned before, it's a time series optimized database, right? So you're configuring Pageant Historian, where you're going to log data from controllers, PLCs out around the plant. So you have your raw data coming in, so you're logging data, once a second. You're going to get every point out there. But then we have some capability to optimize it a little bit. We have what's called exception and compression filtering that can be added to the to the historian. So what exception and compression is all about? Say you're logging a temperature. So you don't care if your temperature swings more than plus or minus 5 degrees, right? You don't really care. So you configure your exception and compression. It will filter that data out. So if it stays within that band, it logs all those points. But once it goes outside that band, it makes it, draws a straight line across and starts to reduce your database size. So that's the idea behind, exception and compression filtering, how to optimize your database with Historian SE. So you can typically expect, 1/5, 1/10 reduction in size compared to a SQL database. And Historian runs on a server, so it needs a server OS. Might be some considerations. You're not going to run Historian on a Windows 10 box per se, unless it goes virtualized with the Historian SE VM. So what other ways to report out of Historian? You've seen the one with in View SE where I can trend it in Trend Pro. But really, we consider Vantage Point to be our premier integration with Historian SE for reporting. Ton of capability in Vantage Point. You see in the middle here with the step 3 where you can configure multiple data sources. It'll be a SQL database or historian database, as well as metrics, FactoryTalk alarm and events. So Vantage Point is really an all-encompassing reporting package, and you can, just that step 3 there is showing, the system configuration, but on top of that, I don't have a picture of it. It's really how you configure your plant model. You can, develop folders, almost like a Windows Explorer, that, defines your plant model, line 1, line 2, line 3, and then drag all your reports into that area. So it's very logical and easy to find your reports, through that Vantage Point portal and browser, report browser. So here's just another picture of Trend Pro and how you can easily trend historian data. There's also a trend tool within Vantage Point, very easy. Really, what all it takes to start the trend data. Once you have your data sources set up here, you see the tags show up down in the bottom left. Simple as dragging and dropping those onto the trend, and your data starts to get trends. So there's not a lot of configuration at all to begin the trend data. Some of the other reporting options we have is there's a Excel data link tool for 5 users. So if you're used to, I'm sure most of us use Excel every day, right? So you see there's an add-in. Once you install this data link tool, there's an add-on ribbon for historian, and that's where you can start to bring that data in, what tags you want to bring in, and then obviously use the power of Excel to create charts and trends and that kind of thing. Then for advanced reporting, ThinWorks, the PTC ThinWorks, right? Many licenses options, so you would add a ThinWorks server plus a FactoryTalk historian ThinWorks connection that allows your historian now to connect into ThinWorks and give you more capabilities as far as reporting, and maybe combining reports with other databases that to give you some more advanced reporting features. Then talk about Transaction Manager. So this package has been around quite a while, but very easy to set up. It allows you to transfer data to and from the controller to SQL, could be Oracle, could be any ODBC database. So some of the examples are, recipe management, track material, really any shop data you need to get it into a database where you're trying to whether track it for regulatory reasons, batch, for batch tracking, batch reporting, recipe management, that kind of thing. So ton of different reasons why you use Transaction Manager. Does have transaction caching, which is nice. It enables fault tolerance. So if your database goes down, it stores the data locally and will store and forward when your database comes back up. It's bidirectional, so you can send data to the database, read from the database, and the enterprise connectivity, the SQL, Oracle databases, FactoryTalk Live data, or any OPC data for third party. So might be a good reason why if you have other third party controllers, you need to log into SQL. Transaction Manager will get the job done for you. So it's really easy to set up Transaction Manager. They got this 5-step checklist. You define these 5 steps, and you're starting to is creating transactions and is logging data into the system. The step 3 is probably the most time consuming, right? That's where you're defining your data points. So, you're defining 10 data points or, 1,000 data points. So obviously, that's where the time would come in to configure Transaction Manager. And finally, the last package I'm going to talk about is Scalable OEE, FactoryTalk Metrics. So what is OEE? I mentioned, talked about the acronym Operational Equipment Effectiveness. So metrics is really about measuring key performance indicators. So it allows you to make improvements to the machine, as indicated by the KPIs and the data that you are logging. So a good example would be like a downtime report, right? Top 10 reasons for downtime. If you're trying to eliminate downtime, what's my most frequent downtime reason? So FactoryTalk Metrics is a great way to do that. So one thing you got to understand about metrics, right? It's not gonna fix that problem, right? It's gonna tell you what to fix, right? So you got to have a culture in place that you have like a productivity improvement process in place. So it'll tell you that my cylinder 1 at station 10 is the most downtime reason. So you're gonna have to take an action, whether it be maybe doing some maintenance on that cylinder, maybe it needs lubrication or alignment, or maybe it's going to take a redesign of a mechanism, if it's some other serious flaw in the systems. But it's OE is a continual process, right? Continual improvement process. You're going to continue to look at the data. Once you get that top reason why your machine is down, right, and you're going to bump down to the next one, so that the second one gets bumped up to your top downtime. So it's a continual process there to increase your uptime, reduce downtime on your machine. Typically, OE is used for discrete manufacturing, not a continual process like maybe a web handling system. But with the PTC offering now, you see with Scalable OEE, we can start to relate some process data into the OEE data where that application exists. So here are some of the definitions in OEE. Really, it's about these three here: availability, performance, and quality. So you can see that OEE calculation is availability times performance times quality in the bottom left here. So it's really all about measuring, why my machine or system is down, what's causing my downtime, why am I losing speed, and, what's causing my scrap. All that leads to, the lost capacity. And that's what OEE and FactoryTalk metrics is all about, giving you reports on, why you're down, what's causing downtime, where am I losing scrap. So you should define schedules in FactoryTalk metrics, which is important. It's really all about the OE numbers, then, making sure your scheduling is set up and breaks and holidays and that type of thing are built into metrics. All can be done with the scheduling capability and metrics.
About 9:30, Bob.
Okay.
We're sitting around 9:30.
Metric? Sounds good. Thanks, John. So how is metrics configured? So it logs data to SQL, the SQL database. You see, it's very easy to configure. It's licensed and designed based on a work cell concept. So say you have a manufacturing line with, 5 process areas. You can consider those 5 process areas a work cell. So now, once you define the tags per work cell, now you can get reports per area of your machine. You can say, okay, process area number 1 has this top, downtime cause. Process area 3 has this top downtime cause. That type of thing. You can combine the, multiple work cells or multiple process areas into one work cell. The only issue is, you can't refine the data and the reports down per work cell then. So now it's going to be more of a system or a machine report as opposed to maybe a work cell report. As I mentioned, there's up to 60 pre-configured reports. Uses SQL reporting services, and it's called the Report Expert. It's also uses Internet Explorer, web browser, so very easy to once you set up and configure reports, very easy to get into it with a web browser. The reports can also be synchronized with Vantage Point, another one of those premier integration things, capabilities we have with FactoryTalk Vantage Point and metrics. So fairly easy to configure some ad hoc reports. It's called with Report Expert, defining parameters from a drop-down list. So very easy to do. So we have this what we call Scalable OE now. It's introduced, I don't know, maybe it's 6 months ago. So it all starts out with visualizing, your data with FactoryTalk metrics. And then as we added some of the ThingWorks capability in, we can benchmark and optimize, add the benchmarking or your maybe correlating non-production information into your OEE data. And then as far as optimizing, right now we're adding process data in the metric with Historian SC. Now you can correlate the OEE info and the process data for continuous improvement. And it gives us ThinWorks gives you some different style reports. Maybe you'd say the more modern style reports, but very, modern type of reporting system. So what do you do with the data, right? So it's all about analyzing the data and what happened, what are your real problems. So I guess when you're designing an OEE system, that's where you really need to focus on up front, as you design your system. What are my problems? What am I trying to improve here on my system? You don't want to just start configuring any tags. So you really got to do some upfront engineering and think about it. What are my problems? And these are the tags and events and downtimes that I want to start to capture. Things like, so OEE will report based on operators, based on shifts. Why is an operator stopping a machine 10 times on shift 2, whereas I don't see that on shift 1. So those are the types of things you can start to capture, and you just have to think about that when you're designing the system. So it's all about just continual improvements and repeat the process. Yeah, probably repeating myself here, but the payoff is reducing downtime, less overtime, reduced labor costs, maybe lower cost per unit. Maybe you're going to increase quality, so increase capacity, right? So now you're less downtime, so now you're increasing your cost per unit. You're making more pieces, parts going out the going out the door. So that's what it's all about. So it's really all about understanding your what you need to improve in your process or business or machine. I'd be surprised if one particular customer that implemented metrics and their management was surprised. Once you start to track the data and get these reports out, it's kind of eye-opening. You see what's going on your system and machines, things you don't even know what's happening. So metrics and and the reporting solution that metrics office offers can, I think will open up your eyes. So the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to start to increase your profit margin. So that's we're about 35 minutes into it. So those are the 4 main software products I wanted to talk about today. Next section here is talking about architecture, some simple architectures. Really nothing complex about implementing any of these software products. This first architecture talks about Historian and Vantage Point. They're here on one server box. Highly recommend you virtualize. We have virtual templates for both Historian and Vantage Point. If you didn't realize that, we have what's called Plant PX virtual templates that can be purchased. It really makes your job much easier and is really the modern way to install software today. So very simple server with a Historian and Vantage Point. Start to collect data on a server box and start to develop reports with Vantage Point. So Vantage Point also has I mentioned about the portal. So other clients, say you got supervisors and management around the plant, they don't need anything installed on their on their PC. So with the portal, you can come in, view the reports very easily. They open up a web browser, maybe you bookmark them, into the Vantage Point portal, and boom, they got the reports. We also have mobile capability with Vantage Point. So if you supervisors walking around the plant, they can view reports on, whether it be an iPad or their iPhone or Chrome phone. So our capability, it's actually been in Vantage Point for quite a while now. There's maybe a little bit more complex of an architecture. Again, we're showing separate boxes here, but this could be one virtualized, multi-core server with virtual templates on it. We're showing an HMI server, a historian server, and a Vantage Point server. The one thing I kind of glossed over earlier was this interface node for historian. So one of the historian has a few different architectures, 3 or 4 different architectures, one being redundant. One of the things you can add with historian is what's called an interface node. So obviously PC servers act up once in a while, right? So say you got to take your historian server down, if you're logging regulatory data, you can't lose that data, right? So that's what the interface node does, is it allows the data to be collected on that PC. And if historian goes down, it starts to buffer that data. And then when historian server comes back up, it forwards it to the server for permanent storage. So we also have redundant configuration with historian, as well as, View SC can be configured as a redundant system. Typically, you wouldn't want Vantage Point on a redundant system, right? It's typically not mission critical for reports, but I suppose you could do a duplicate system, or maybe look at something like a Strata server. If you really needed a high availability, something like a Strata server, all this could be virtualized on a Strata server. But just a few architecture examples, nothing, earth-shattering rocket science here. It's really quite simple. So I have 4 video demos here. I want to, for 2-3 minutes apiece, just to show you, give you a little better feel and understanding what's happening here. So I may stop a couple in the middle just to point a few things out. So this first one is FactoryTalk metrics configuration demo.
It's not running on our screen, Bob.
You're not seeing it?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I was afraid that was going to happen. Let me back out the Teams here.
Okay. For those on the call, we do have the hard handouts, obviously, if you want to print out here what Bob's presenting, but this is also being taped. So if you know of anyone within your company or other people that might want to listen to Bob's presentation, we can make that available. Just contact Bob or I, and we'll.
You see it now, John?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You might want to enlarge the screen. Yep. There we go. Thank you.
So I want to pause it here. So this is really a step-by-step, process of configuring the performance parameters for OEE. You don't need a ton of tags to configure FactoryTalk metrics. You can see here the first thing is like a part ID, part count, scheduled availability, monitored availability, whether your machine is running. These, you're talking, a handful of tags here, 6 tags to configure a work cell in FactoryTalk metrics. It's that simple. Where it can start to be a little bit more time consuming is with these custom events. So that's what he's going to talk about here, the custom events a little bit. That's when you want to start to track downtime, so obviously maybe alarming would probably be one way to, to track downtime. So if you got, you probably want to limit it as you're developing your system, maybe 10 alarms per work cell type of thing, but obviously machines can have hundreds of alarms.
Bob, you got to put the sound on. We can't hear the sound either. In Teams.
Sorry about this. Where's that? So you know where that setting is? Sorry.
Yeah, go back out to Teams,
Yeah, I am.
down to your bottom. Should
Yeah, I don't.
be.
Yeah, I don't see it there. Yeah, I don't see it there. Turn on live captions. No. Is it you that would turn it on?
I'm looking for it. No, I don't see it.
I see it. Well, maybe that's not. Maybe I'll just shoot out the links then.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that'll be fine.
Yeah. Get back. Sorry about that. So I'll shoot out these links. They're really good info. You know, it shows how easy some of these products are used and can be configured. You know, whether it be FactoryTalk metrics. By the way, these are like YouTube videos. Rockwell has a YouTube channel. There's just quite a few you know, videos on these products. I'm gonna tally up a list and I'll include it in the email where you can download all these different YouTube videos. Talking about getting more info. So Rockwell developed what's called on-course cloud-based labs we can do for metrics, for Vantage Point, for Historian. So if you're trying to get more hands-on experience, you know, we don't have Tech Ed anymore. Actually, Tech Ed would have been this week probably. It usually is the week of Father's Day. But this is one way to get more hands-on experience. I also have, you know, Tech Ed Labs from 2-3 years ago. If you want to get more hands-on experience, just reading through the PDF manual, you just get a lot out of it. Or I could come by with my virtual image and, you know, sit down with you and, you know, go through labs and just get more hands-on support that way. And on June 29th and 30th, so Tech Ed used to be this time of year and kind of turned into what we call Rock Live now. It's an event June 29th and 30th. When I send you this PowerPoint, you'll be able to click on this link, or if you just go to rockwellautomation.com, it's there on the web page. So great way to get more information. So they're all tech sessions this year. There's no hands-on labs per se. Virtual event again. So, but we got, you know, it's a two-day event with keynote speakers, discussions. So it'd be over 100 product and technology sessions. So,
Bob, when you click on the share content, I think that's where the sound default is.
Okay, I can go. I'll go back to it.
Machine into a state of running. We'll enable this event. We'll select any time the bit changes, make this change. We'll reuse our running bit, and this is when it changes from low to high. So when the run bit is 1, we will assume the machine is in a run state. We'll click on machine state false. We'll simply check the box saying that when this is available or when this is on, when this is true, it'll be in a run mode. And then we'll make one small change here for reporting. We'll make it severity level 100. We'll click OK. Now we'll go in, and most people would add a fault. So we will add just a generic fault. Enable. We'll again select any time this event is active. We'd like to record it. When it goes from low to high. Notice you could have a transition that's from high to low being on as well, a selection. In this case, we will select, how about a blower stop? And that's our Boolean bit that's either off or on. We'll then select it, say that it's a fault when it comes on. We'll check the box and say we'd even like it to toggle the faulted state. And under reporting, we'll select 0 for severity level. Click OK. Another option that you could do is that if you had an event from another work cell that you wanted to copy in, you could go in and say, I would like to have an oil failure. Event, click OK. Notice how it pops it in even with all, it's exactly the same. So I'd show that option, apply, OK. Let close on the configuration. Now notice it's the same work cell, and now we actually detect that we're in a running state, and we show the event here as well.
So that shows an example how to easily, how easily metrics is configured with that configuration flow chart. Oops, got to the next one. Okay, going to the next video here. I think I was kind of running slow on time. I think I'll go skip to the Vantage Point demo just to give you a feel on Vantage Point.
FactoryTalk Vantage Point 4.0 now includes the FactoryTalk Metrics connector. This connector allows users to access FactoryTalk Metrics.
So I'm going to pause it here so you can see what I was talking about. So you can build a model up on top here. It's called My Enterprise. This is where you can store all your reports very easily, based on, a line. You can call it, line 1, line 2, line 3, and then you can develop reports, drag and drop them underneath there. Then you can publish them to the portal so other supervisors and whoever needs to see reports can view, your reports. Down under the system here, system part of the tree, this is where you're configuring, you're linking into Historian, you want to link into your Historian application or your metrics application. This is where you'd set up and synchronize the data to these data sources. FactoryTalk A&E would be underneath FactoryTalk. So pretty simple to lay out and organize.
Application that may already be running in their plant.
This is talking about how to add some FactoryTalk
data found in the metrics application is exposed as tags and structures in the Vantage Point model and can be used to create ad hoc reports and data analysis within Vantage Point. In this example, we've selected a work cell, BL line 1, and we could simply drag and drop things like good part counts right onto our trend. In addition to exposing data as tags within Vantage Point, all of the reports created in FactoryTalk Metrics Report Expert are imported as links into the Vantage Point model. These reports can be made available to users by simply copying the link from under the Report Expert tree and pasting it into the logical namespace so that it's exposed in the portal. Users then simply browse to the portal and can see those links here along with any other Vantage Point content. Clicking on the link will actually cause the report to generate in the reporting services report server used by Metrics and then expose that data here within the Vantage Point portal. The benefit being that users only need to go to one website to see all of their reporting content regardless of where it may come from. In addition to the Report Expert reports, the FactoryTalk Metrics connector also brings a real-time dashboard for work cell status, as well as a handful of Excel reports that are built in and work with the existing work cell types defined in the FactoryTalk Metrics connector. I think you'll find that this new connector adds significant value to both FactoryTalk Vantage Point and FactoryTalk Metrics products.
So I'll end it with those two demos, but I'll give you all the links for the videos we have. And, you know, if you have an application, really.
FactoryTalk Vantage Point 4.0 includes a new set of types and associated web pages that are collective.
Yeah, so if you have an application, you know, I can come out and do more of a, you know, a real demo. I have a virtual machine with metrics and Vantage Point loaded on it. So if you have a, you know, an application you want to look at, you know, maybe take a test drive of the software a little bit more, you know, we can do that. So I guess at this point, John, I don't know if we have any questions or anything.
I don't see anything in the chat, Bob, but you're welcome. Anyone to come off mute if you want to ask Bob a question on any of what we covered today, on any of the product offerings, any of the software applications. And as Bob did say, we welcome the opportunity to come out and talk to you. We are going out, we are visiting customers in person. If you still can't see us on site, we can still do it virtually if you need be. But we welcome the opportunity.
The big thing, food for thought on this screen, right, is 20 billion cost of unscheduled downtime, or your machine breaks down. That's what metrics and, you know, developing reports to tell you what's going on, gonna reduce your cost there. Two more slides here, just closing thoughts. Yeah, just a few closing thoughts. So sometimes it's tough to convince upper management, you know, to invest in this digital transformation, you know, digital transformation initiatives like OE and analytics. So, you know, get us involved, you know, between Rexel and Rockwell Automation. You know, we can assist you in getting your project started with materials, presentations. We got executive overviews. You know, we can hold a series of meetings, you know, and build a business case, you know. What's the ROI to, you know, to install some of this? Sometimes it's tough to put numbers on that, you know. It's kind of subjective, you know, what the ROI is going to be. But, I mean, rest assured, you're going to start to reduce downtime and increase productivity. Some of the things to watch for: defining expectations, right, and requirements to keep the project on track and no surprises. You know, I mean, that's why you got to get the minds of everyone who's looking at these systems. You know, what reports do we really need to have and help us be more productive. So thanks for attending. Let us know how we can help. I'll leave my contact info here. You can contact your account manager, Rexel account manager, you know, John Conway. You can contact John if you know him, or again, contact me. I can come out and do more demos. We can discuss your application in more detail.
I think that's a wrap, Bob. I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't see anyone else want to come off mute and ask a question. We got 4 minutes left. I know we appreciate your time because we're all pretty busy, but and this is a pretty broad subject matter. We covered a lot there, Bob, and I appreciate you doing that. But again,
yeah, this is just an intro. Yeah, we can really deep dive into it if you need to.
So please reach out to your outside sales person or inside sales, and they'll get a hold of us or myself directly. My contact information up here, as Bob's is too. We welcome the opportunity.
Thanks for everyone for attending.
Thanks, everybody.